Yeah, sometimes our challenges and struggles aren't necessarily just solely meant for us. Sometimes it's meant for those around us. And so then, too, they understand the challenges that they're facing may not be as bad as somebody else's, or how they can grow and learn from them the same way you are in the midst of it.
Every single individual has a story to tell, and they're great stories that need to be heard.
I want every listener to know they have the ability to change the world.
Welcome to the 1720 Podcast.
What's up, Mountain Movers? Welcome back to the 1720 Podcast. We're with our new friend, Nakia Douglas, today, and he was introduced to us by our great friend and former guest, Justin Parscale.
Yes, sir.
Which has a funny story to it because how the tee-up goes, Stewie.
Yeah.
Justin and I are having coffee, I think it was, together, and I had my back to the wall, and we're in the middle of conversation, and then I'm like mid-sentence, and then he just stands up, wide-eyed, with his hands up, like field goal good, and he's like, Nakia, you need to be a guest on his podcast. That was like opening words. I think before he said hello.
Yes.
Story checks out. Yeah, I can say it's 100% on brand.
I concur.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is how you guys met.
Right.
That's right. So we had a conversation, didn't know each other. It was kind of like this like awkward, like, hey man, good to meet you. And he's like, no, I'm dead serious. You need to go on his podcast. We're like, yes, sir. Okay, we'll figure that out. And here we are today.
Here we go. Justin Parscale to the rescue once again.
All the time. All the time.
All the time, yeah. How do you know Justin?
Justin and I met, wow. I was at Barack Obama Male Leadership Academy then, and we would host a lot of different leaders throughout the city. And he came down, and sometimes people would stay back and talk to me and everything. And Justin and I just started talking and just hit it off. And he says, I'm here for you whenever you need me. And I said, I'm not that one that if you tell me that or you give me your card or we exchange numbers, that I won't follow up.
Ooh, yeah, I like that.
I said, may not be tomorrow, may not be next week. But when I call, I expect to get an answer. And that was the beginning of our relationship. And since then, not only have we become friends, we just continue to support each other as men, continue to support each other as fathers, and just in this life, you need those people that you can call on, even if you don't see each other every day.
Yeah.
That person is there rooting you on and also holding you accountable. And so that's our relationship.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Again, story checks out. That's the type of person Justin is. And
right.
Just keeping in touch with folks and checking in. And somehow all those people that he knows, they're all somehow top of mind, it seems like to him.
Exactly.
Like he's one of those people that just is, the Rolodex is always flipping and always checking in and touching base and seeing how you're doing. And there's a few people in my life that I would say, like, if I got, the way I would say it is if I ended up with a flat tire on the other side of town in a rainstorm and I call somebody.
Right.
Done.
Yes, sir.
And count Justin among those. You'd be like, yeah, I'll be there in a minute.
Yes, sir. That's him.
That's him. So yeah, well, all great stories start somewhere.
Yes.
And so I don't know where yours starts. I kind of got some ideas, but let's tell a story, man. Take me to some place and tell me a story.
I'm a native son of Dallas, born and raised in South Dallas. Graduated from Lincoln High School. The interesting part, from kindergarten through 8th grade, my mom actually sacrificed and put my sister and I through private school. That built a foundation and an understanding of the value of education, but also the sacrifice that parents will make, because my mom was doing that by herself.
Yeah.
My dad left when I was 4 years old. My sister was 2 weeks old, laying on the bed. And I remember just like yesterday, my dad said he was leaving and to go get some cigarettes. And I remember telling my mom, he ain't coming back.
Wow, at 4.
And, right.
Oh, man.
So when they talk about that mindset that you become the man of the house, I think that never left me as a young man, even into my career as well, because I always kind of felt like I had to be a protector.
Mm-hmm.
I was a neighborhood kid. I used to ride the bus from South Dallas to Oak Cliff. I participated in the Boys and Girls Club. Well, I'm sorry, it was the Boys Club then. Learned how to swim at Morelands Y.
Mm-hmm.
Did gymnastics at the old YWCA, which is the Mark Cuban Heroes Center now.
Okay.
You name it, I probably was a part of the program. And so now when my kids meet some of the elders from the community, they be like, I remember your daddy, he was this age and he was doing this and he was doing that. And they were like, Dad, how you know everybody? I was like, I was just in a whole lot of programs. And so, there's that belief that to them who much is given, much is required.
Yes, sir.
And so that kind of led me toward my career path. In high school, I was a part of, I'm first gen. So I was in Upward Bound, you name it, from university outreach to VA Explorer program, any program that will prepare you for college, I was a part of it. And those programs kind of gave me a path and understanding that, there is a life beyond South Dallas.
Yeah.
My mom would always constantly expose us to different opportunities. And she was like, you may live in South Dallas, but South Dallas doesn't have to live in you. And so just that understanding that where you are right now is not going to define the rest of your future. And I never forgot that.
So being involved in all those things, I mean, I guess initially it's your mom's behest. She was saying, no, you're going to go do this. You're going to we'll put you there. We're doing all this because we're going to, yeah, that makes sense.
Right.
Sometimes those stories are innate, and I'm sure it became innate, but sometimes it's someone having to push you into these spaces to get you to think outside of whatever.
We've all heard those people say, I see something in you that you don't see in yourself.
Yes, sir.
That part of my journey was that, when I went to Lincoln and my mom was taking me up to talk to the counselors, getting my schedule and everything done. And she was like, I don't know about the rest of these kids, but he going to college. And the counselor just started laughing and said, well, I got somebody we need to introduce him to. And the gentleman sitting in the back, Mr. Jackson, he was a recruiter from SMU with the Upward Bound program. And he said, I got a program you may be interested in. So literally from my freshman year, and I played sports as well. But on weekends, Saturdays, I had to go to Upward Bound. And it was just that conditioning. And then being on that campus at SMU, spending the summers out there, just kind of changed my mindset that, okay, this is cool. I can do this one day.
Right. I can see beyond
Yes, sir.
the neighborhood or the community.
Yes,
I can
sir.
see that this life is bigger than South Dallas.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I already know a lot about your mom.
Yeah.
Just based on the 2 or 3 minutes we've been talking. But tell me about mom. Tell me about mom.
My mom, wow, I'm 48. So my mom is 78 years old and she's still working.
Really?
She works at Lincoln. Dr. Napoleon B. Lewis was our principal when I was there in high school. He was there for myself and my sister. The fortunate part for me, my mom was
This guy's name's Napoleon?
Napoleon B. Lewis.
Okay.
We called him Papa Bear.
That's a great nickname and a great regular name.
Oh, yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, Dr. Lewis stood about 6'4", 6'5". But he was a father to so many of us there in that community. And what he did and how he poured into us and how we watched how he poured into those teachers to create the expectations of excellence. That was during the seasons when Lincoln we were quite athletically renowned in regards to our basketball teams.
Yes, sir.
But then we were also renowned for our academics. I was a part during my sophomore and senior year. We traveled to Africa twice. Right.
Yeah,
Right.
sorry. What you couldn't see was me like just dead stop sipping my coffee because that's very interesting.
Exactly. I was also a part, that was the TOS test. I think it was TOS back then.
Yeah, TOS or tax maybe something.
It wasn't tax yet.
Okay.
I remember that.
Okay.
But we scored so high that the state didn't believe our scores. So they had us to retest. And again, how Dr. Lewis had those real honest conversations with us. He was literally like, they don't believe little Black and Hispanic kids can test as well. Let's not only show them that this was real, let's take it even further. Our scores went up the second time we tested. That was that journey during that time. And so it was just a real awakening of us as individuals to understand the collective impact we were going to have in society.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yes, sir.
Tell me about going to Africa.
It was transformative.
You said it, but I forgot. In 16?
Yes, sir. 16 and 18.
Okay.
I was in the humanities cluster there at Lincoln. So Lincoln was known not only for our sports, but we also had our magnet programs. We had humanities and communications. And I was a part of the communications magnet. And we were doing world cultures. So we're studying all the cultures across the world. And our teacher, who's now one of my mentors and best friends, Dr. Juanita Simmons, she goes on to say, if y'all could travel anywhere in the world, where would you go? We all kind of looking around each other. We're like, She was like, if you could go anywhere in the world, where would you go? We were like, well, Our white brothers and sisters of European, lineage go to Europe. Hispanic brothers and sisters, they're either going to go to Spain, or if they're of Mexican descent, they're going to go to Mexico. We guess we would go to Africa. And she was like, y'all want to go? And we were like, yeah, okay. Yeah, we'll do it.
Uh-huh.
And it went from planting that seed to initially about 40 of us that were really interested to when we got down to doing the fundraising and the meetings and the preparation and everything. That first trip, there were 14 of us. We got to stay with families. We were there for 2 weeks. And you're talking about just transformative. Going to Goree Island to the point of no return, which was the last point for slaves. And so, when you went to that door, you went out for one of three reasons. One, you were deceased. Secondly, you were rebelling and they were throwing you out to the sharks, or you were getting on the ships. And that's set on our hearts and our spirits at a whole different level. It's one thing to read about it, but to experience it and feel the agony that exists within the walls and in the environment there. To being there in the schools and you're riding with the families, and we went to school with them.
Mm-hmm.
And you're riding the bus, and if we ride on the bus here, if you're sitting more than one person next to you, it's a problem. We get on the school bus, you see 3 to 4 people sitting on the seat, people sitting on laps, people standing up holding the posts while we're riding. So we're driving past the marketplace, and we see other kids out there, and we were like, we already packed. Why don't we just get them too? And like, oh no, everybody doesn't have the chance to go to school here.
Right.
Only the best have the opportunity or their families can afford the opportunity. That's a paradigm shift.
Yeah.
And then to be sitting in classes and they're learning their 4th and 5th languages. And so we were in a French class. This was their third year in the French class. And so they're sitting there just speaking, and I don't understand anything they're talking about. So I'm just sitting in the back doodling. They say, oh, we got a brother here from America. Tell us about yourself. How old are you? And how many languages do you speak? I say, well, I'm 16 years old, from Dallas, Texas, United States. And I know one language and some change. And they're like, language and some change? I said, well, I speak English and I'm learning Spanish. And they say, that's why we look down upon you all. What you mean look down upon us? They say, you all have all the opportunities in the world and you just squander them away. And that hit me a little different. They were like, you don't recognize, they say, you represent the best of us that were taken away and we're the leftovers.
Ooh, I never thought about that. There's a lot of things I never thought about, but I never thought about that.
Oh, when they said it and you're sitting there and I'm like, oh man, I didn't know you felt like that. But that young me had to have a rebuttal. And I was like, well, you don't understand what slavery was. I said, slavery did not only enchain us physically, but I said there was some mental and spiritual. I said, so we've been disconnected. And so everything that you all continuously had access to, we just gained those opportunities again. And it was just a back and forth that just became a beautiful moment in time of recognizing the other's pain.
Yeah.
And recognizing the other's story. And those stories just stuck with me. Going back my senior year, I got to go back and see my family again. Kind of serve as a mentor for those other young brothers and sisters that were traveling abroad. And it just became an experience that continued for about, I think, another 4 years. Because my sister, when she came to Lincoln, she had the opportunity to travel abroad. And then funny story back to Dr. Lewis. After I graduated that May, Dr. Lewis hired my mom that August. So my mom has been at Lincoln since August of 93.
Oh, wow.
And she was there while my sister was there. So my sister didn't catch no breaks.
No, for sure no. For sure no. I'll tell you what got us onto that little beautiful story there is I said, tell me about mom.
Yes, sir.
And then you started talking about Lincoln, and then we got off on taking the trip and stuff. But I'm going to pull you back. Tell me about mom.
Mom is just the truth. We always talk about as kids, we have superheroes. I've always saw my mom as a superhero because she made a way out of no way. And so sometimes I didn't understand how she would make things happen for us. Again, going back to school, I would sometimes be in the principal's office. And probably been about 10 years ago, a lot of my classmates we got together from City Temple. It was a Seventh-day Adventist school. and we're Baptists. So, there was a conflict on Saturdays.
Yes.
We got events over here at the church, and you got a soccer game or a football game. Which one you doing? My mom was like, no, you going to the school because they're helping with your tuition. So the reason I would be in the principal's office sometimes because when she couldn't pay tuition, they would pull me out of class. So my classmates were like, we don't remember you being that bad, but why were you always in the office? I said, when my mom couldn't pay the tuition, I would sit there. And I always tried to find excuses of why my sister should stay at the school. I knew the kids from the neighborhood. I could just go to the neighborhood schools. My mom said, I know what they're learning and what they're not learning. And I know what I learned and what I didn't learn. And my kids won't have that experience. So whatever we got to do for you to be at that school, you're going to do so. And the teachers would sneak me the assignments. And initially, I wouldn't do it. And she says, if they're giving you those assignments, you turn them in because you need to understand the power of education. What doors it will open, what doors will close when you don't have it. So when I talk about my mom being that superhero, she had that foresight and knowledge and just willpower to will things into existence, to see beyond.
Yeah.
You know how you're reading Traction right now?
Yes.
His mom was the visionary and he's the integrator.
Yes.
It's unbelievable.
Yes.
Right.
She had a vision way beyond even what the life she was living for your future, for the legacy, future generations.
Right.
And you walked with it.
Yes, sir. And
there's a I'm going to say this is a really obvious duh moment. But in 2024, I think a lot of people don't really consider what it was like for your mom growing up. And I'll tell my story. But my mom is she graduated from high school in '69. This is my mom, and so I don't know all this, but she'll tell stories about she remembers when the school that she grew up in southeast Texas when the school was integrated. That it blows my mind, right?
How close it is.
Yes, but I think about it primarily just because because of humanity. I think about it in the context of my mom, right?
Right.
But the context of your mom is the same,
right?
Right. She remembers what it was like to not have same opportunities for schools, and then the integration process and all of that. And I'm not smart enough to give a history lesson here, but just saying the perspective of your mother in those instances, to not be mad about it, but to say, no, this is. I learned from that experience, and you too will reap the benefits of me having all of that. I'm kind of giving you word soup here, but you get the gist of what I'm saying. It's just man, it's powerful for your mom to say, I think I figured this out.
Yes, sir.
This is what we're doing.
Yes, sir.
That's wonderful.
And that led into who I became as a professional educator.
Yeah.
Because, again, just that the internal challenges that I was having because we couldn't pay the tuition, wearing those ugly uniforms. That was a whole nother.
They probably were ugly, actually.
They were green pants with white shirts. Well, it was actually gold when I was in elementary. They had the little gold signia on the back of the pants. I hated that. And then we would have to stop by the store in the morning. All the kids from the public school would be out there oh, look at him. What you got on? What? That they used to give me the blues. But again, I knew them. And so I was like, that's all right. That's why I'm learning. You not.
Right.
Yeah.
Not really understanding until the weekend, well, we did this. Oh, we didn't do that. Well, we went on this field trip. Oh, we didn't went nowhere. And I'm like, what? Why don't you have the same experiences that I have? And so when I became a professional educator as a teacher and administrator, my whole goal was providing a private school education at a public school cost for the students and the communities that I served. And so it was just that intentionality that I don't care whether or not your parents can afford to send you to private school or not. There is no reason why you shouldn't have the same level, if not a higher level, of opportunities to learn and be a productive citizen and be the greatest that you can be for yourself.
Yeah. My school may not have the same financial resources or whatever, but I can pour into you as much as I got, and I can make sure we're staffed with people that are pouring into you as much as I can, and all of those things that make it feel personal and real, people who care and all of that.
So going back to our beginning, when you talk about Justin and others that came through the schools where I was at, I utilized that.
Yeah, right.
I found out when they're asking about me, and I'm asking, okay, What do you do? What's your life story? What'd you do? Okay, I need you to come by and volunteer. I need you to come by and speak on this panel.
Mhm.
I need you to come up here and support this group. And so it was a win-win. It's a win for them because they were interested in the school and being a part of it.
Mhm.
But more importantly, it was a win for my students in the school because now we have a new partner, but then we also have another partner in education that's making whatever our youth's dreams viable because now I can touch out Kevin. I can touch out and reach
Yeah.
Stuart. I can reach talk to Justin and pursue my goal with someone that actually walked the same path.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
That's powerful.
Yes, sir.
Like the multiplication,
Yes,
kind
sir.
of what you're saying earlier, like the exponential impact that can have
Exactly.
is it's just really unknowable, the power of it. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
There's we say often here, small moments make a large impact. I
Correct.
remember 10 plus years ago going through the Big Brother, Big Sister orientation.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing that's always stuck out to me, they said, and you could be matched with somebody in South Dallas
Mm-hmm.
that the only thing they've ever known their entire life is that little 2-block by 2-block grid.
Yes, sir.
And they've lived in South Dallas their whole life and have never seen the skyline.
Yes, sir.
I'm getting the chills. That was the one that I was like, how is that possible? Because that's it. That's
Right.
their entire life right
Right.
there. They don't leave.
Yes, sir.
And that was a wake-up call for me.
Yes, sir.
Big time to understand what's happening right here. You don't got to go far for it.
No, sir. No, sir.
Man, Kevin, I do this thing where I tell a story on top of stories,
Mhm.
but I had that realization when we took a trip to Africa as well, so a
Mhm.
short-term mission trip, and you kind of get to the point where like I come back and I had the thought, which I didn't have to fly halfway around the world to see people in need. Now it took me, I think, going halfway around the world to come to that realization.
Right.
But you're a mile away from somebody.
Right.
Wherever you are, you're a mile or two away from somebody
Right.
that needs help.
Yes,
You
sir.
don't have to go to Africa. You don't have to go around the world. You don't have to go on a mission trip. You don't have to go build houses in Haiti.
Yes, sir.
You can do it right here.
Yes, sir.
So there's just so much opportunity to help.
Charity starts at home and then spreads abroad.
Mark that. Right?
Oh, we get it. This is going to be Wisdom City. It already has been. We could just end it right now to already be awesome.
Run the war drums. Run it. All right. So storytelling. I'm going to try to take us through chronology then, because we're in high school.
Oh, yes.
Ish, kind of in your story arc.
Yes, sir.
I know there's some other spots on the journey here, so
Mm-hmm.
tell us a story.
High school.
I interrupted immediately, like a total
Yeah,
bomb.
let's tell a story. Never mind.
Yeah. Well, because I didn't know where you were going to go, but I wanted to ask. You said you played multiple sports. What do you play?
Football, soccer, took martial arts, tried gymnastics for a little bit. I actually played soccer from kindergarten till probably like 7th grade. And no, actually probably about 6th grade. Then at the boys club, you had the Oak Cliff Steelers. And I was back there and those old coaches were like, come on out here and try this. All right. And, we can hit each other? Yeah, this is all right.
That's going to work out for this teenage aggression I have that's inside of me and I don't know why.
And kind of fell and got that bug. And, at Lincoln initially, we didn't have a soccer team because, soccer just wasn't popular in the neighborhood at that time.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was my junior year we finally got a team. And unbeknownst to me, I actually got recruited to go to the University of Tulsa to play soccer. And I didn't want to play sports in college. I felt like if I'm going to go, I want to go on my own terms. And so everything that I was looking at were academic scholarships.
Wow.
Gotcha.
Football, my head coach is actually Coach Samples. Coach Reginald Samples at Duncanville. They just won the 2 state championships.
Yeah.
We were his first high school football team.
Oh, that's
wow.
awesome.
At Lincoln. And we would laugh. And on Saturday mornings, again, I used to have to go to Upper Bound. And so he would have film sessions on Saturdays. At that time, I was standing 5'4", 135 pounds. And he was like, Douglas, why you not coming to film? I said, Coach Samples, look at me. Who gonna give me a football scholarship? This is my path right here through education. And we would laugh about it. And we, I've seen him a couple times since, and he was like, you just always knew. I was like, yeah, I knew. 5'4", 135 pounds. That wouldn't get me no scholarship for football. But it was just that those seeds he planted too. We didn't know at the time we were his first, team. We just knew he was our new head coach that was coming over there to the school. And it was just that, again, a mentality and understanding, who you are, knowing your limitations, but then also building upon your strengths. And while in high school too, I never wanted to be a teacher, but I was in Future Teachers of America. And the only reason I joined it was because they went on field trips. And
it's a solid choice, though.
Yes, sir.
Field trips are solid.
Field trips. Opportunities. They went to Austin every spring. I was like, I want to go on that trip.
Yeah.
And Miss Glorious Dixon was the mentor between Lincoln and Pearl C. Anderson, which was the feeder middle school. And she would take us over to Pearl C. to mentor the kids. And one day we were coming back. She said, one day you're going to be a great teacher. I said, no, ma'am, I'm not. She said, why not? I said, because the kids too bad and y'all don't make enough money.
She's like,
exactly.
Well, you're right.
Fast forward, whenever she would see me, especially with my students, she would like, if you knew your principal, you knew your teacher when I knew him, he never wanted to do this.
Look at that.
But I'm glad he listened to God. And, so, yeah, faith has a lot to do with my journey so far.
Oh, yeah, and I think we're going to get into that. I wonder in that conversation with your football coach, if you hadn't been self-aware and determined in another direction, when he's like, hey, come watch film, and you're like, no, this is my path. If you would have kind of given a lost answer, he probably would have been like, don't worry about your size and stature. Get in this room just to make sure you were a part of something. But he could just see clearly you were destined for something. He's like, oh, he'll be all right. I don't need to pull him in any tighter. He's good to go.
That was the power of, again, going back to not only our my mom and the other parents that were around us, but the principal. He knew who we needed in our lives. And so he had to make some decisions because there was another historic coach that had been at our school for years. And Dr. Lewis knew when it was time for that transition to happen, bring in new leadership and surround us not only with a coach, but teachers that were intentional about what they were pouring into us. I was doing trig, and I remember sitting in the trig class, and I'm like, I want to be a social worker. Why do I even need this course? But the understanding was, they said, well, we're teaching you to apply the highest level of your mind. So whether or not you're using this in your career, you've learned to apply this level of your mentality. So therefore, any challenges you face academically, if you can overcome this, you can overcome the rest of it in the future. And so, again, fast forward. When I became a principal, we added pre-AP and AP when I was at Maceo. When we opened up Obama, every young man came in, you going straight into pre-AP and AP. And the parents were like, well, now hold on, he wasn't pre-AP, he wasn't in tag. Well, if he's here, we're going to equip him to be successful. We're going to support you all as a family, but then collectively, we're going to support them to have success. So it's that changing of that mindset. Having gone through it, I could walk somebody else through the same process. Right. And just so happened that I had credentials to support, the guidance of what I was willing to provide for them.
Yeah, right.
Yes, sir.
With getting on the other side of it, not just on faith and hope, but also confidence, because
Yes, sir.
it can work.
Yes, sir.
It's not just faith and hope. It's like, I've seen the outcome.
Right.
You haven't yet, but trust me.
Right. Faith without actions is dead.
Yes.
And so it's putting forth that vision and putting it in front of people and guiding them toward it, being transparent with it. I always believed in, and just been great to have some great staffs that saw and understood the vision for what the work we were doing, that we were transparent. So not only transparent in the professional learning community where we're talking about each other's data, but anybody knew, especially when we first opened up Obama and my last couple of years at Maceo, we would post our school data in the main hallways. So everybody understood this is why you feel the intentionality and the intensity in regards to the expectations of how we're going to overcome the academic barriers that our children are facing by the insistence and exposure to great instructional journeys, great instructional opportunities. And so there was never any aha, I got you moments. No, this is why they do it.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, you go over there, that's what they do.
Yeah.
That's Mr. Douglas and his team, this is what they expect.
Yep.
And so it wasn't just an expectation of the students, it was an expectation of the faculty and staff, the parents and the community as well.
Right.
Yes, sir.
That makes sense. Tell me, I'm going to ask a Jesus question because I know he shows up
Yes,
So
sir.
he showed up. Like if we're in high school, has he showed up yet?
He was hanging around.
Yeah, no, I get.
He's always doing that.
You know, he
I feel
always
like he's hanging around a lot, but go on.
he hung around in ways that I didn't see and understand.
Fair.
You know, I have a friend. Well, I got a lot of stories, but one of my friends, the Phillips family, Broderick and Cedric Phillips, from my freshman year up until my junior year, after I would leave home, I would go by their house, and people used to think I was a nice dresser. Well, my mom did what she could, and what she couldn't do, I could go down to Brock's and them house, and their mom would always let me wear some of their clothes. So if they weren't wearing it on a Monday or a Tuesday or whatever, I'd flip it in and wear it the next day. Again, I was 5'4", 135 pounds. And it wasn't until my junior year that I hit the little growth spurt that I have right now. And I remember walking to the door, and his mom just looked at me. She smiled, and she was like, "We can't help you no more." And I'm like, "What you mean, Miss Phillips?" She says, "You realize how much you've grown?" I'm like, "No, ma'am."
Mm-mm.
And she says, "You don't fit the clothes anymore." And I looked and I said, "Well, I'll just roll up the sleeves. Whatever we got to do to make this work." And I think that's when some of my friends outside of him didn't know, the struggle that I had.
Mm-hmm.
But just like we were discussing earlier, you just smile. You don't ain't no need of carrying your pain and your weight and your challenges and struggles into the lives, into the conversations with everybody else. You work your way through it and you're thankful for it. And so going back to, like you said, God being there, God was there in just in a variety of ways, through a variety of relationships that I appreciate now that I didn't understand then. Went off to North Carolina to college and Livingstone. And while we were there, my mom had some more hardships. So she was staying with my grandmother. And so when I would come home, there wasn't always space for someone else to stay in the house. So Derek, Terrence, Lorenzo, I ended up staying with them.
Mm-hmm.
Derek and Terrence here in Dallas. And when I was in North Carolina and they shut the dorms down, Lorenzo had moved off campus. So I would go and stay with them. I mean, my boys became family because of the proximal understanding of each other's challenges and struggles. And so, you talk about, again, God being around. Even though I may not have physically just felt him at all times, I knew spiritually he was surrounding me with people, mentors, a village that was guiding me towards something better and bigger than what I could experience or what I was used to experiencing at that time.
I mean, did you even appreciate it at the time, or is it like, with the benefit of hindsight, you're like, okay, I get that those people were not in my life by accident?
I'll say yes and no.
Okay.
I'll start with the no first because we were just always there. And there just always just seemed to be a path and a curation of experiences and people that just seemed to just kind of be like, okay, this is step one, that's step two. This group is here getting you through this. This group is here getting you through that. Or these friends are here during this season. And, as a child, you really don't see it. You just like, okay, we just fit. It's working.
Right. This is what it is.
Yeah, exactly. But when you become older and you recognize there was a synergy in our spirit, and that synergy within our spirit was even deeper than that. It was God-given. It was a divine appointment. It was that moment that provides further clarity in regards to, we got you through this, so you can do this.
Mm-hmm.
We allowed you to struggle here, so you'll be strong enough to handle this over here. Yeah. So I start to understand even further, the blessing of my father not being there. Because I became so observant of everything and any man or just anybody in my life, and I would take the good and the bad from every situation. And so I learned just to look at every situation as a learning experience. I can do this when I get older, or I won't do this when I get older. When I become this type of teacher, I may do this in my classroom, or I won't do that in my classroom. when I become a campus principal, I want to have that same impact as Dr. Lewis in this, but I won't do this. And so I would take bits and pieces of everything in every situation. And then when you get to adulthood or you get into leadership or you get into being a father or just different capacities, you get to bring together and cultivate it to who you are and create the best fit.
I'm going to go back to that because I think my jaw slacked open for just a second. But I think what you said is the blessing of your father not being around. Is that what I heard you say?
Oh, there's blessings in the challenges. There's blessings in the pain. There's pain and there's purpose in the pain.
Yeah. That's just your boys are gonna make fun of me, but now I got like the chill bumps of the idea because man, that is not a story. That is not a way people typically frame that story.
Right.
That story is absence, frustration, lack of leader. I mean, I could jam a bunch of ideas in there. I've never in my life heard it say like the blessing of it, and it's just reframing it. But my goodness, man, it's amazing. I've never heard it like that before.
It helped me to define who I was individually, but then fast forward, I never knew I would open up an all-male leadership academy for boys in Dallas, and to recognize and remember my own pain of different seasons in the life of those guys. And so I could be walking down the hallway or, hear a challenge that the young men were facing or things of that nature. And I tell them, just send them to the office.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm still doing my work. And I go and let it out. And they just sit back there and cry. And I turn around, you ready to talk? Yes. What's going on? Nothing.
Mm-hmm.
What's going on? Nothing. You wondering why he ain't around, right? How you know? I used to wonder the same thing when I was your age.
Mm-hmm.
You wonder what you can do better. How you know? I used to wonder the same thing when I was your age. And so it was, I would tell people that campus, whether you were a student, a parent, or a faculty and staff member, if you had any fatherhood wounds, they were going to be revealed during that time. And if you open yourself up to it, they could be healed during that time. And that's what it did.
Yeah.
It healed a lot of fatherhood wounds for myself, for those young men, and for different members of the faculty and staff and the community. My dad left when I was 4 because how do you raise a child that's potentially not yours?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it's real stuff.
So all them years when I went by hating him, once I found out, what the story was, the perceived story was, I felt bad.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was in North Carolina. I graduated. We're about to graduate from college and went through a season where me and my mom were struggling. I was living differently. I wasn't in the right headspace. So I wasn't the best person at times in school. But it wasn't until finding my faith again that I had to come home to heal. And so when I said Dallas represented demons for me, it was coming back to face those demons and heal from them. And taking care of my dad, that was really the 2 best years of my life. Subconsciously and psychologically, I think I was coming home to have that father-son relationship that I didn't have growing up. But as God would do it, everything he needed, he had a stroke. Everything he needed to learn from his stroke, I was teaching as a kindergarten teacher.
Mm.
So I went from a class of 29 to 1 to a class of 1 to 1. I had my classroom labeled, came home and labeled everything because when I first brought him home from the rehab facility, he called everything a biscuit. So I thought he wanted biscuits. So we went and bought biscuits. Doug. He never called me my name. Doug. No biscuit. There was a neighbor up the street, Miss Mary. She says, baby, she says, we're proud of you, number one, for coming home to take care of your dad because we didn't know who was going to take care of him. And she says, I know those doctors have given you all these prescriptions of what he can do and what he shouldn't do. She said, will you take a little wisdom from an old lady? I said, yes, ma'am.
Please.
She says, just ration him some cigarettes. I said, cigarettes? I said, the doctor said, no. I said, if he starts smoking cigarettes, he could die. I'm trying to do what the doctor say. She said, baby, I've known your dad since he was 15 years old. He was smoking then. Just give him a little piece of life. And so I started rationing, and we would sit out on the porch, and, neighbors would come by and sit and talk with us. And his vocabulary started coming back, and
There you go.
memory started coming back. And before he passed, the only thing he wasn't doing was driving. I have an older sister. When my wife and I got married and moved to Central Texas, she would take care of him, but I would come home every weekend to take care of him and everything, give her some time. And the first time he met my wife, we were dating. And she met us at the Metro Diner, which used to be right across from Baylor Hospital. And the waitress used to know my dad as Big Doug, and she called me Little Doug. So she meets us there for breakfast one morning. We just started dating. And she comes in, she says, she's sitting there with us, and she goes to the bathroom, and she says, who is that? I said, that's my daughter. We all kind of look at each other like, now we. And then she goes to the restroom. He says, Doug, she's the one. She the one, Doug. He claimed the first time he met her.
That's crazy.
And we just celebrated 22 years.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Right.
There's so many good stories in that. Like all the doctors in the world, right? They can't prescribe you soul, right? But she knew, that elderly lady.
Right.
They're like, he needed a little dose of something that brings his soul back.
Right.
And there's a lot of healing.
Right.
When you get that back.
Right.
Can't get that from UT Southwest or whatever.
Yes, sir.
Doesn't exist.
Yes, sir.
Well, there's another part of healing in there too, and I know there's a lot of the story, but like as you're saying it, some of the words you used was like we sat on the front porch and people came by.
Right. Right.
Man,
It's a chain reaction.
yeah.
Right.
It reminds me of COVID. And this is a crazy. You're shaking your head, so you know I'm about to go with this. But
yes, sir. Go ahead.
our neighborhoods feel so like disconnected, and we
Mhm.
built 8-foot privacy fences between them all. But during COVID, what'd we do?
We came out.
Right, we sat on the front porch.
Right.
We actually remodeled our front yard to build a seating space with a place we could sit, and we saw the neighbors walk by and walking the dogs and met new friends and all of this, right? But it harkened back to a day where sitting on the front porch was what you did, and the community is the people you knew and all that stuff. And so like that idea of doing it, love it. The idea that it's like healing and restorative,
Right.
love it. And there's a lot of lessons for all of us around like just like literally knowing your neighbors
Mm-hmm.
and them knowing you and being able to pop in and tell an old story and reminisce about something and laugh and share a drink and all that stuff. So
What COVID did when you talk about community, it transitioned community back from just being a noun to a verb.
oh man, might write that down somewhere.
Right. Because community is communal, coming
Mhm.
together, proximal, togetherness. The more we're separated, the more likely we are to not see and understand others. And what COVID did, it shut the world down. And, only God could do that, how you orchestrated that. And you have the entire world shut down. And even though we were separated holistically, we became together collectively.
Yeah. That's that's awesome.
And it didn't stick. Because
Well-
old human nature, biting the apple from the tree.
Like, I know that we're, but also I hate you and I
Yeah.
don't understand you and let's fight about something. Well, wait a minute. It wasn't just almost 4 years ago now. Can you believe that?
Right.
We had decided that we were all in this together. Remember that?
Right.
We're not anymore? No?
Yeah, we're not in that boat.
We're still not. Okay, right. No, I hate you
The
again.
flood's over, I guess.
Right. The flood is over. It's perfectly said. The flood's over. Let's get back to hating each other. Right? Unbelievable. Anyway, that's sort of side storied that, but that's
Yes.
beautiful, man.
Yes,
That's
sir.
beautiful. Okay, so this, I don't know how long it lasts. You got to spend a lot of time with your dad. After having
years.
not, I don't know all of this, but probably not have spending a lot of time with him.
Well, when I would come home from college, my great grandmother, so my dad was staying with my great grandmother. And the funny thing about it, again, even though he left at 4, he really only stayed 8 blocks away.
Okay.
So it was kind of hit and miss in regards to, when we would see each other or, we have time together and stuff. That was tough. And then the street that he lives on, Southland, it was known for the hill. And so you had bikes. At my age, at that
Mhm.
time, we always went down Southland. You raced down the street. And I remember one day going down the street, with my homeboys, and this car pulls out, and pulled out, and we almost hit it because we were on our bikes. And the man stops the car and gets out and starts kind of cursing, and he looks, and then I look in the car, and he has his girlfriend and her kids in the car. And my great grandmother's sitting on the porch, and she sees me, and she says, they call me Smiley. Smiley, get on up here. I said, yes. She said, you okay? I said, yes, ma'am. My homeboys looking because they don't know, my great grandmother. And they said, you okay? I said, yeah. So I'm finna stay back and talk to her. They're like, who is that? I said, my great grandmother. And they were like, who is that? I said, it's my dad. And she said, you okay? I said, yes, ma'am. She said, you sure? I said, yes, ma'am. And she and I got close, real close. And she'd always tell me, baby, you special. Baby, you special. And so, all the way through middle school, high school, you always telling me I'm special. Neighbors telling me I'm special. And I used to ask her right when I was in college, right before I found out everything. I said, Granny, was I an ugly baby or something? She said, no. I said, was I adopted or something? What? And she was like, one day you'll know the story. She said, but no matter what, that's your dad. I just need you to promise me that when I leave here, you always come and see him. My granny passed when she was 95. And so I graduated May of 97. Yeah, that was May of 97. She died 2 weeks before I graduated from college. She always said she was going to get on that flying bird and come see me. But I told her I made that promise, and so I would always come home and see my dad. And so when I get home to see my dad and everything, and we kind of sat, start trying to have a relationship, and it kind of came around a little bit towards the end of my high school career, but it was almost like too much time had passed.
Yeah.
But it was going into my junior year in college. I have a friend, or my sister now, Tanya. We knew each other all the way through high school, and she always knew everything about me. Everything. I mean, everything about me. And so I just figured she had a homegirl at Lincoln that told her about, what I did. And she says, you ever wondered why I always call you my big brother? I was like, well, I guess that was your way of making sure that, I didn't try to date you or nothing.
Friend zone.
Yeah, you kept me in the friend zone. She says, no, we've known about you all our lives. So what you mean? She says, yeah, we've known about you since you were born. I said, huh? She said, you my big brother. You our big brother, for real. I said, huh? She said, you know Uncle Duck? I said, yeah, I know Uncle Duck. She says, that's my daddy. And I was like, okay, what they got to do with me? He says, that's our daddy. And I'm like, no. She said, remember he used to stop by and see you and want to talk? And she said, you sit there and talk to him for about 5 minutes, and then you just be like, all right, I got to go. I'm like, yeah, how you know that? She's like, yeah, he used to tell us that you would do that to him. And there was just an understanding that my mom and the family made that nobody would tell me.
Huh.
And so when I did find out, I asked my mom about it, and I was back in school. And she says, well, we were going to wait till the right time to tell you. I said, well, Mama, I said, as an adult and a parent, I understand, you had to make a decision that was best for you all. I said, but the pain still is the same, whether you told me where I was 1, 18, 28, 38, or 88. Like I grew up, upset and hating this man, and nobody told me. I said, now I understand why people used to say I was special, because they understood that there was just a divine challenge, a character building moment that was placed upon my existence, and that impacted the family, that you all respectfully made a decision. I said, but everybody forgot about the child.
Yeah, right.
I said, so the child is hurting now. So you all have to respect me in being that I'm going to kind of pull back for a while. And so I got closer to my extended friends who became family that were witnessing me go through this. Because we all grew up with our fathers in our house, but we all had different stories.
Mm-hmm.
And mine was just playing out in front of everybody.
Right.
So, yeah, sometimes our challenges and struggles aren't necessarily just solely meant for us. Sometimes it's meant for those around us. And so then, too, they understand the challenges that they're facing may not be as bad as somebody else's, or how they can grow and learn from them the same way you are in the midst of it.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
That's that cycle of mountains.
Yes, sir.
The mountains in your life. You said it. Got you through this so you could use it, right?
Right.
And you had those examples and the kids come in your office and
Yes, sir.
you're able to use
Yes, sir.
that pain because you know there's, in the moment, it's tough and it's
Right.
that person's mountain. Whatever that peak is their peak.
Mm-hmm.
You can't compare. Comparison's the thief of joy,
Mhm.
right? Like whatever
Mhm.
your peak is and my peak, we both feel it as an equal peak.
Mm-hmm.
It might be a different story, but it's all our peak. But
Mm-hmm.
not only can you get through it, but you could use it, and then eventually, blessing. You're
Right.
thankful for it. That's
Right.
That was awakening for me last year. Just listening, you hear the same like elevation worship and scripture songs,
Mhm.
and one day I heard, "I'm thankful for the mountain," and I started reflecting on thankful for the mountain. I'm like, wait a minute, I am.
Right.
Like, I've never been there before.
Right.
But it takes that cycle. It takes a lot of life, maybe longer seasons than you hoped to get to that point.
Yes, sir.
But then when you start sharing it, like I'll tell you some comparative stories offline. Like
Right.
when you share vulnerable stories, all of a sudden people are like, I went through that and I kept it to myself because I thought I was the only one going through it.
Yep.
Lie of the
Yep.
enemy.
Yes, sir.
That's why we
Yes, sir.
share.
That's it. Exactly. And it comes in time.
Mhm.
And you got to know when and where because everybody's not prepared to receive it at different times. And then sometimes, depending on where you are in your own personal healing, you may not be ready to share it because it does create that sense of vulnerability. And are you willing to answer those questions? Are you willing to confront those memories? Are you willing to grow from those mistakes? I haven't been perfect by no means to say that I've lived a perfect life. I've made my mistakes, my share of mistakes, but I'm still growing and learning every day.
That's right. School's
Yes, sir.
always in session.
School is always in session. I'm either a student or a teacher, one or the other.
Just flip the hat.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Any given moment.
Yeah, yeah. There's so much to that. I could say different things, but it would be the same thing. It's
Yes,
just
sir.
like, you never know, man. You never know when somebody needs to hear your story, and you don't know why it's been given to you, and you may not want it, but it's yours to steward.
Correct.
And you do with it the right thing as the time comes.
And sometimes it's meant for you to listen to other people's stories or understand other people's journeys.
Mhm.
There's just so much great synergy that happens in being able to speak, but then more importantly, being able to listen. What to say? We were
Mhm.
given 2 ears and 1 mouth. Which one should we use the most?
Right.
Our ears.
Well, and it goes to kind of the community thing we were talking about
Mhm.
earlier, but it goes to the stewarding of your story in a lot of different spaces. But if you don't listen, then if all you want is to be heard, then
Right.
you can't really ever reach understanding.
Correct.
I need to listen. Like, I need you to tell me so I can understand you better. And maybe the answer is, now that I understand you better, we have a better synergy, or I have a story that I need to share with you, or I can help you heal, or I know a guy. But if all you want to do is be heard, we're never going to understand each other.
Yes,
So
sir. Yes, sir.
I love the idea of just listening. Just tell me. That's kind of how we started out. Just tell me a story.
Right.
Like, help me understand you better.
Right.
And here we go,
Yes, sir.
right? Anyway, love that. Where do we go from here, though? I feel like we talked ourselves into a corner.
It seems like, and we don't have to do these itemized by any stretch of
Yes.
the imagination, but telling your story, it seems like at that point, Father passes, it seems like you say, I'm here to stay.
Yeah.
Like, and there's some sort of maybe another divine appointment, something career related.
So,
All yours.
So even coming back to Dallas was a story in itself because I'm doing 3 things that I said I'd never do. I said I'd never move back to Dallas, that I wasn't getting married, and if I stayed in education, it'd be late 40s, early 50s before I went into administration. What they say, if you want to make God laugh, you tell him your plan versus his.
That's right.
And I just think he just bust out laughing. He probably thought I was just like a world-class comedian. Like, yeah, I got you.
Yeah.
Hey,
That's real
come over
cute.
here. Hey, y'all come over here and check this one out.
Watch this one.
Yeah.
Moved back, found my faith, take care of my dad. While I was taking care of my dad, my money got short. North Carolina pays less than Dallas does. And so when my money got short, I said, well, I'm going to do what I do. I'll go back and start teaching. And I was at the table with the HR, and they said they wouldn't accept my years from North Carolina. And I'm like, oh, no. I just got up to 19,000. I'm not going back to where I start off at 16.5. And they said, so you're not going to accept my contract? And I literally was ready to walk away. And I said, well, how much are you all offering? And before I walked away, I looked at the contract. It said 31,000. I said, oh, well, I think I can work with this. And so that began my career in DISD. And then I wanted to go back to my old neighborhood of South Dallas. My goal was if I made it out, if I'm coming back to Dallas, I got to go back to my old neighborhood. If I made it out, I want to show others the same path. So I taught in Martin Luther King Learning Center. And while I was there, this young lady, I recognized her a couple times in the hallway. She was quite the looker and everything. But I'd had a bad incident with one of my coworkers when I was in North Carolina that we dated and it didn't work out well.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of getting my honey where I make my money, I try to get all my friends to come up and meet this young lady. And they're like, what's wrong with her? What's wrong with her? I said, nothing. Well, why you won't date her? I was like, remember what happened in North Carolina? I would never do that again. Well, one of our coworkers one day, we were leaving a conference. She said, I got $2. Y'all can at least go to the dollar movie. We went to Dave & Buster's, and that was 22 years later. That's how I met my wife. That's the love of my life. She saw me when I didn't have anything,
Mm-hmm.
at my purest, unraw form, taking care of my dad, balancing work. The phone, this is not the same cell phone, but the same number. I got this number because of her, because I would not get a cell phone. I was, conspiracy. They'd fallen and listening to me and everything.
Oh, they are.
Yes, exactly.
But also, because
Right, because she used to see me whenever he gets sick. They called to the school, and she was like, no, they need to be able to get in contact with you whenever your dad is not well. So she talked me into getting a cell phone, and I've had that number. We've been married for 22 years, so I've had that number for 23 years.
Yeah.
Same number.
Coveted.
Yes, exactly.
At this point, there's no chance you ever get rid of it.
And so I joke with people. I said, if that number ever changed, that means I messed up. She cut it off, and made me start from scratch. But she saw, again, somebody else saw something in me that I didn't see in myself. And I used to have locks. So when I was taking care of my dad, I had a little mini fro. And whenever, I couldn't understand something or I was really struggling with it, I would start twisting my hair. And so one day she literally says, why don't you go in and lock it? And I was like, huh? And she was like, you do it all the time anyway. And so I started locking. And so when I had my season of taking care of my locks and my hair, it was also the season of when I was taking care of my dad. And so there was just that spiritual rites of passage in understanding myself.
Mm-hmm.
And then we left here. My mentor from high school, Dr. Simmons, was finishing her doctorate at UT, and she knew I was in Dallas and felt like I wasn't being as engaged as possible. And she said, well, you need to come down to Austin and see what opportunities they offer. And we went down for a little trip. Kind of like the city, little vibe and everything. I'm like, okay, this is a college town. I'm kind of used to this. I could see this, and I'm looking at opportunities. And we were dating at the time. She says, "Oh, it'd be cool. I may come down to visit you sometimes." And I hear her say, "I was like, huh? What you mean? You want to move down here with me?" She said, "Not if we're not married." Oh, okay. This is that marriage thing. I didn't know that I loved her the way I did until I thought I was going to lose her.
Ooh, man.
Right.
Yeah, she's playing chess.
Right. Right. And I was on the board and didn't know that I was playing. That the game called love.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she was playing and when I thought about the moment of losing her or, about to make this decision, it just kind of reaffirmed what people have been telling me from my dad. She the one. To my mom, after she met her, she was like, oh, she's nice. To my homeboys back in North Carolina, like, man, we don't know who this is, but she got you. To me understanding that you got a blessing right here in front of you. And she stayed with me that Christmas, and I proposed, and we got married July 14, 2001. And that was just the beginning of just a series of blessings and just our journey collectively as a family to where we are now. It hadn't been without any pain, hadn't been without any challenges and hardships, a lot of joy, a lot of memories, a lot of great opportunities, a lot of growth, a lot of just experiences of her witnessing me deal eventually with the death of my father to preparing her when she lost her father. And so that was part of our reason I moved back to Dallas. After my father passed, I was still in Georgetown and I moved to Pflugerville. And then her father became ill and she wanted to come closer to home. I was like, all right, even though we had just built a house in Pflugerville, we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Came back to Dallas. Was able to go back to my old neighborhood as an assistant principal at Charles Rice Learning Center. She got settled in DISD, built our home in DeSoto, and we've been there for 20 years. And God has been good. He's been good. Yeah, so when you talk about just a series of just spiritual opportunities, faith is an easy word to say, but a harder word to display. Come on.
Mm-hmm.
You know, people are, I believe. Okay, you believe when the challenges hit?
Mm-hmm.
You believe when things ain't going right? You believe when you get fired? You believe when you lose them? You believe, when things aren't right, when that car breaks down or that kid is acting up? Do you still believe? That's when you see people's real character. Character building moments are those moments that cause you to challenge and rethink and question everything about the core of your existence. And when you are at those broken moments and you recognize that the strength that you're living in and abiding in isn't just yours, it's beyond you, that's when you truly learn about yourself and you learn about others.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, sir.
Pin that whole last 2 minutes right there.
Yeah, right.
That was good.
Clinic on faith right there.
Yeah. In my head, I'm thinking, thank you, Justin.
Yeah. Yeah. I was thinking about how you believe God's in control until you don't have control.
Right.
That's the thought that was running through my mind. Like, oh, God's in control as long as have the steering wheel. You don't have the steering wheel anymore.
Right.
What do you think? That's not where you would have driven.
Exactly.
What do you think now? And that's where that faith gets tested. I don't know exactly how you said it, but it was awesome about like it's easy to say it again. What did you say? Something about displaying it.
It's easier. Faith is an easy word to say than display.
Yeah.
That's it.
Well, and man, the gaps between my light bulb moments, thankfully, are getting shorter.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you know of one this past Sunday where I was wrestling with something a few days by myself.
Mm-hmm.
And then I showed up at church Sunday and I'm like, here, dude, like,
Here's your playbook.
Yeah. Hey, I don't know what and then like the immediate peace I had, peace despite the chaos because of faith. I don't have an answer.
Right.
But I have faith.
Right.
But look, sometimes I need this much time to do it.
Right.
My arms are spread as far as possible, trying to get those waves shorter.
Yes, sir.
And maybe eventually it'll be pre-wave,
Yes, sir.
proactively, like going into this, knowing I got faith. And then there is no wave, but not there. The waves are very short, but it's a beautiful thing in that self-discovery when you can show, all right, you first, man.
Right.
I'm trying to wrestle this all by myself. And that's silly.
Man.
Well, and the wavelengths getting shorter too is a part of this is just Stuart on faith. Like, but this means nothing. Everybody stop listening immediately. Right. But it's like if you're not having that communion or that relationship or like the regular interaction, and then all of a sudden you're like, hey, I need to get an answer on this one real quick. No, like I don't know you. Like let's you know what I mean? And so the more you're talking, the more you're communing, the more you're praying, the more you're in this, the wavelength starts getting shorter.
Yes, sir.
And anyway, I see that, to Kevin's point, I see that in your journey. It's just like, no. We're more often we're saying you. I don't know why I said we. There's no plural there. Saying, okay, boom, that hit me. Help me figure this out. As opposed to me, who's still a stupid idiot, is just like, oh no, I'm under control. I got it under control. Yeah, hold on a second. Watch me do this.
That wouldn't have happened if I didn't physically walk into church.
Right.
Like I think we were talking about this yesterday on the car ride.
Right.
I think people are still operating. I'm kind of generalizing. People are still operating church and COVID rules of just watching on TV. When man, you need to go. Go be a part of a community. It's a huge difference. Because me physically walking in was all that was needed in order to lay something at the feet of him.
Correct.
I'm not getting that if I click join Teams chat.
But it varies from person to person.
Agreed.
Because some people need that proximal. Some people need a message that may pop up on their social media. Some people may need an interaction with individuals that they work with. But for some people, we may be the only Christ, God that they see or they ever experience.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Some people may need it going on a nature walk, hearing him. How we hear him and how we experience him is different from person to person. My kids and I learned to experience him during COVID more doing our nature walks and walking our dogs and just seeing him in what's happening with that tree. It's eroding. What does that have to do with life? That's a part of aging. Okay, do we just throw this tree away when it starts eroding? No, you have to take care of it. So what happens with our elders when they get older? Do we just throw them away? No, we take care of grandma. We do. And so we would have conversations like that. We had a garden. I didn't grow up doing no gardens growing up. We had watermelons, collard greens, spinach, butter crunch, lettuce, asparagus, cilantro, the little grape tomatoes. It blew my mind that we were able to do that in our backyard, but we were able to find and hear God in the simplest of ways that have been kind of lost since we've come out of COVID.
Yeah.
We just don't have the time, or we don't take the time to do it the way we used to. So, yes, there is that need of proximity, but for some people, depending on the stage of life they are, I won't say that church is the only way they can find it or receive it. It could come at different times and different spaces, depending on how that person is able to listen and hear his presence.
I agree.
All right, so I'll do the how do we transition from that great thought to the next great thought. Pick me up. Y'all are married. I mean, I know you have a professional journey here that I think we want to lean into too, and where you are and what you're doing now and all this stuff. So take me
getting married.
Take me down this little path here.
Moved to Central Texas, was an assistant principal in Georgetown and Pflugerville. In Georgetown, I learned systems. That was during 9/11. And the principal I was working with, again, just, man, you keep taking me there. So we were talking about Houston Baptist. So
oh, yeah.
I went through Region 13, Region 13 Education Service Center, and we had a partnership with Houston Baptist, and it was an alternative certification program for administrators. And so when we were about to get married, literally going through sessions, sitting in sessions, I'd accepted a teaching job there, but to be a part of the program, no one could be a teacher. So all my other cohort members had jobs. And so literally I'm sitting here 2 days before I get married, had relinquished my teaching job and was nervous because I'm about to go say I do to this woman this weekend and I don't have a job. And literally we're going back and forth in a session, and Becky Washington, she was our facilitator, and we're going back and forth talking about classroom management and design. And she says, where you work at? And I said, I'm looking for a job. And she looked at me, she said, come see me at the break. I said, yes, ma'am. Go see her at the break. She says, I just retired from my school. I said, okay, that's good. She said, but they moved my assistant principal up to the principalship, and she needs an assistant principal. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's good. Mind you, I'm 26 years old with locks down below my shoulder. And she says, I want you to interview for that job. And I was like, okay. Now, mind you, the night before I told my wife, I said, I just want one interview. All I need is one. I only got one interview, and that began my administrative career.
There you go.
Becky Washington, again, just another divine appointment, connected me with her former assistant principal, who was the principal, Beth Foss, and I began my administrative career in Georgetown. While there that first year, Miss Foss ended up having a medical procedure, and then she had to go and take care of her aunt that passed away. And the superintendent came down, and I'm thinking he's going to bring another principal in because she's out. He said, no, I've talked with the staff, I've talked with the students, talked with members of the community. You're going to be in charge. And then, I'm like, what? You sure?
This guy?
Yeah, me? And he was like, yes. And so that was kind of my first experience outside of being assistant principal, just kind of like, here you go, you got it. And I was like, oh. And so you have all that self-doubt that comes up. But then I just did what I knew to do. And, prayed about it every day. Lord, please don't let me make no mistakes. We got to take care of these kids, take care of this community. And it worked out well. I was there for a year, went to Pflugerville, was there for a year. That's when my father-in-law became here. My wife wanted to move back to Dallas. Moved back to Dallas, was assistant principal at Charles Rice. Was there for a year. That was a whole journey in itself because, again, they thought I was coming to South Dallas from Austin because they thought I was from TA, and most of the staff didn't know I was from South Dallas. And so it wasn't until the first day of school when the kids and parents are coming in and someone said, Nakia, that you? I'm sorry, Mr. Douglas, that you? And the teacher was like, how you know him? They were like, he grew up the street.
Yeah.
And then just this warm welcome happened. They were like, well, why you never tell anybody that you were from the neighborhood? I said, well, I shouldn't have to. I said, because my work should speak for me.
Yeah. Oh, there you go.
And so if I have to live off relationships versus, the power of my work, I'm not doing my job.
Mm-hmm.
And was there for a year and then got my first principalship, which was Maynard Jackson Vanguard School. I was 29 years old. I was the youngest person on the staff. And that was one of those, again, those moments. First day getting ready to speak to the staff, one of the senior teachers comes by and pulled me to the side, Miss Mitchell. She says, I got a question. I said, yes, ma'am. She said, how are we going to do this? Miss Mitchell stands about 6'2", 6'3". I said, ma'am. She said, how are we going to do this? I said, do what? She said, you're the same age as my kids, right? I said, yes, ma'am. She said, how are we going to do this? And I look at her and I said, well, it's not a problem for me, but if it's a problem for you, we can go discuss in my office. And she looks at me and she started laughing. And she says, we just wanted to know that you had enough confidence in yourself to lead us. And we're fine. Became one of my biggest advocates. When Maynard Jackson was, I was there for 2 years, and Hurricane Katrina hit, we had the influx of young people, families that moved into Dallas.
Yeah.
We became a middle school. Ms. Mitchell stayed there with me as a middle school teacher.
There you
go. We had a good relationship. My wedding anniversary was also her birthday. We stayed in touch even after I left Maynard Jackson. I was in Maynard Jackson as we became a middle school for 1 year, and then they asked me to go to the high school. So I literally loop with my students as their elementary, middle, and high school principal.
I can't escape this guy.
Exactly. They knew I knew them, and they knew me.
That's fresh good. Start. Oh, wait, never mind.
Great journey. So I followed an exemplary principal going into the school, then opened up the new middle school, then going to the high school with an established principal that had been there for years, and had to do some turnaround work. So 3 different mindsets. And so I always tell people leadership is situational, based off the decisions and the challenges that you're facing at that time. Your leadership will change. And if you don't change, you won't survive. There's a difference between what Walmart was able to do versus what the 5 and dime store was able to do.
Mm-hmm.
Walmart adapted.
Right.
And they're still adapting just to keep up with the Amazons and to deal with everything else that's coming out.
Yeah.
And so as individuals and collectively, as people, we have to continue to adapt. We have to continue to grow and learn. And so that's why we were talking earlier, some moments I'm the student.
Yeah.
And in some moments I'm the teacher. And just knowing when to put what hat on when.
I think you see a lot of that adaptive situational leadership playing itself out. I feel like I can always make a sports analogy in college sports.
Oh, yes, sir.
It's just like, you know what? Pick a coach. Pick Saban.
Right.
He's now retired, but the changes and the situational leadership that he had to change, kind of fluxing out of, and the way the kids came in and out of the program. And
yes, sir.
If he'd have just been like, nope, this is how we've done it, he would have failed miserably.
Right.
But a testament to his ability to adapt to the situations and the kids and the expectations and all of it, continue to keep them at the top. And this is what you're saying. It's like, go run the old playbook and see what happens.
Right.
You'll get run over.
You're going to have to adapt.
Yes.
He had to adapt when he left LSU and went to the Miami Dolphins.
Correct.
And it was in the midst of the challenges that he faced when he was at the Dolphins, that he became his best self.
Mm-hmm.
So he learned from the pain.
That's right.
His pain became his purpose, and so therefore it led to a greater legacy, because people forget about he had success before Alabama.
Right.
People just know that that's when the lights were on him, and he had the storied career there, but it was built upon that. There was a foundation that was laid, and he just adapted it to this situation and became renowned as one of the best coaches to ever be in college football.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And they talk about he wasn't just in on this latest wave of adaptation, like the transfer portal and NIL, and he's just like, you know what, this is about to pass me up.
Right.
See ya.
But there's also wisdom in that, because how many times have we seen elders and people in power hold on beyond their time? And
go there.
You haven't prepared
a
succession plan for someone else, or you're not okay with the next iteration of what is to be. That's a whole journey in itself and a whole conversation in itself right there.
Big time.
Well, and part of it also, and I don't know Coach Saban, I don't know if this is true or not, but he's older. I mean, isn't he 76?
70, right.
Something?
He's younger than my mom.
Touche.
Uh-huh.
But you have, if the NIL was coming at them hard and it was changing everything and he was 50, he might have thought, I have the energy for that. I can, but at this age, and you're just like, you know what, it's time, it is what it is, and it's time for me to move along, is wise. To your point, like sometimes people hang on a little too long, and that's its whole own organizational problem. But just having the energy for it too is a whole part and parcel analysis to succession planning as well.
Sometimes it's holding on too long, and then sometimes it's people's willingness to let go.
Mm-hmm.
When we think about funerals, nobody wants mom or dad or that aunt or grandmother or uncle to ever leave. And sometimes it's like we know they're in pain, but we just want to hold on a little bit longer.
Sure.
Come home, take care of my dad. I wish I could have had longer than 2 years, but I'm so appreciative of those 2 years that I was okay when it was time for the let go.
Mm-hmm.
I was okay when he told me, Doug, it's all right. You go down to Austin. You get your career. When it's almost like when he told me that and I was still commuting back and forth, it was like, I'm good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You did your part. And so I didn't have no regrets. And so in life, with any relationship, we should live it as though we don't have no regrets. Live those moments and have those conversations, have those, that time, create those memories where you never have any regrets. And sometimes I think in letting go is we still have some regrets of some things that we could have, should have said, or some time that we could have, should have spent, that, it becomes more personal for ourselves versus, I'm glad Nakia not in pain no more.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Versus, God dog, I should have cussed him out one more time before he left out of here. Now, if you going to cuss me out, you should have got it on out when we first got it. We healed and moved on.
Right.
That's right.
Because my dad and I went through that period where, he was cussing me and I was cussing him. And I was like, I will put you in a nursing home and I will go back to North Carolina. I didn't sign up for this.
Yeah.
But that helped cultivate me to, who I am today. And hopefully one day my son and daughter will take care of me when I get older. But if not, maybe I've impacted enough lives that somebody will look out for me.
Somebody will stop by.
Yes, sir.
Drink sweet tea on the porch.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
If I'm a betting man, yeah, it's going to be a line. It's going to be a deli counter line. Next ticket.
Yeah. Yeah. Tell me about them kiddos. Where did they show up?
7 years ago. So they represent healing. So, you talk about life and lessons and figuring out things and talk about faith. Moved back, Maynard Jackson Middle, Maceo. My second year in Maceo, my wife and I had been trying to have kids for a while. We started down in Austin. We had some complications and we're having to go through in vitro through the process. And that was 2007, 2008. Yeah, 2008, 2009, we lost our first set of twins. One stillborn, son lived for an hour and a half first time. 2009, 2010, lost second set of twins. Uh, daughter was still, no, son was still born that time, and then daughter lived for 2 hours. And that last time we were in the hospital, my wife went into anaphylactic shock, and the doctors didn't know what was going on. And, sometimes we have to have those real conversations with God. And me and God had one of those real conversations like, look here, man, you just got me back. You done took my kids. You take her too. I'm out. You can have this thing because, I've been trying to be a good, faithful servant, but you can't take my rock from me now. Hard enough you done took these babies. And it's like God was like, okay, I got you. So I get back to school, and my staff, we'd grown together, and literally, they were like, "How do you keep coming back?" I said, "What do you mean?" They said, "How you keep coming back, Mr. Douglas?" I said, "Well, I can't control what God is doing in my life with my wife and our kids." I said, "But I know He put me on this earth to be an educator, so I find my healing in coming back to work at the school with you all."
Yeah.
And like God was like, "Okay, I got another test for you." That was my third year at Maceo, and we were coming out of low performance, and we basically had to have incredible scores that year. So we'd had incremental gains by 5 to 7 points, but I'm back at the school. I'd been put on a growth plan for the campus and everything, and my boss asked, he said, "You don't seem upset." I was like, "What could be worse, being put on a growth plan or burying your kids?"
Mm-hmm.
And I said, "You're going to see, we're going to come out of this." And he was like, "Why are you not upset?" I said, "Well, high school principalship is just like an NFL coach. Either you going to the championship or you just stagnant." I'm like, "We're going to the championship this year." And he started laughing. I'm like, "Oh no, you're going to see."
Mm-hmm.
Long story short, we had 20-point gains across the board that spring. My last 2 years at Maceo, we had single gender classes, added all pre-AP and AP level courses. I was doing professional development with our staff. So there was nothing that we were doing at Maceo Smith that Barack Obama Male Leadership Academy wasn't known for. We were just doing it in a comprehensive high school with boys and girls. That spring, after all of that success, we were preparing to close down Maceo, and we were opening up Wilma Hutchins High School. And then Maceo Smith was going to become the new tech school. Well, I was told in front of my staff that I was not going to be the principal of Wilma Hutchins, and I wasn't going to go and stay at New Tech in front of the entire staff. And it's like, I stood there for a minute, and most of my staff, specifically like the security officers, they had been with me for 6 years because they were housed at the high school, but we had a working relationship. And I remember watching their temperament, and it literally went from, "Oh man, how you say that?" to, "Oh Lord, how you finna respond?"
Mm-hmm.
And in that moment, there were some staff members that were, hurt. There was a couple of staff members that, we didn't have see eye to eye on everything. And they were kind of like, "Yeah."
Outwardly?
You could see that expression like, "Yeah, good, got him."
Man.
And I had to walk away. So I walked to my office, and my supervisor, he was leaving. And before he gone in, I said, "Anything you need to tell me?" "Anything?" No. I said, "Sure, nothing." And so that was April 15th, 2010, and it wasn't until June 27th, 2010 at 8 a.m. that anybody would meet with me. Not my supervisor, his supervisor, the assistant super, or the superintendent. And I was on the superintendent's leadership committee for principals. And it wasn't until I was part of the administrative union. They wouldn't file a grievance on my behalf. I wrote the grievance up myself and said, "Y'all can just put your
stamp it."
the stamp it." And they said no. So I sent it in, and the superintendent's admin, she contacted me. She says, "He was gonna meet with you, but he's not, because the legal attorney said the attorney said he shouldn't meet with you now that you filed this grievance." I said, "Well, you've seen all the emails that I've sent him. So if this is what I had to do just to get a response, I'm fine. At least y'all know." Went and talked with an attorney. 30-minute consultation turned into 2.5 hours. And right before I was getting ready to leave, he says, "What I'm about to tell you goes against my moral fiber as an attorney." I said, "What's that?" He says, "If you get the money you're capable of getting, you'll never work with kids again, and I can't have that on my conscience that I blocked you from kids." And so I'm leaving there upset. And so I never stopped going to work. I kept going to work. I don't think I missed was the prom, did graduation, everything. And I had a running joke with my staff. To the day they asked for these keys, I'm the principal of the school.
Yeah, right.
And so June 27, 2010, I get there, finally meet with my supervisor, and he tells me, I was told to tell you, look at the website and whatever you want, you can have. Well, unbeknownst to him, I ain't always been in Dallas. So I was being recruited to go to either Chicago or Baltimore, and I was a finalist for a position in Chicago. And Jeremiah 29:11 is important. It was given to me first when we lost our first set of twins. But fast forward, June 27, 2010, 12 o'clock, I get back to the office after meeting with my supervisor and tell him, I'm not looking at the website. If y'all got something for me, you need to present it. Because if this is how you treat former students, teachers, and administrators don't do anything wrong, I can imagine how y'all treat people that actually do something wrong. And I get back to my office and I start packing up. And at that time, that was the last day of the summer. Of the year. It was just myself, office manager, and the custodians. So I start packing up. She said, "Ms. Douglas, can I ask you a question?" I said, "Yes, ma'am." She said, "So they asked for the keys?" And we just bust out laugh. She said, "I ain't never met nobody like you." I said, "If you understand where I came from, you understand why the fight is in me."
Yeah.
I'm like, "You're not just taking anything from me. And if I ain't did nothing wrong, I'm going to stand on it because that's what I was taught. Have two things in this world, my name and my word." And so my name wasn't messed up and my word wasn't messed up. So they were prepared. They weren't dealing with Mr. Douglas anymore. They were dealing now with Nakia.
Mm-hmm.
And I sat down and I did something I hadn't done the whole time. After she left, she said, "I want to take you to lunch." I said, "No, ma'am." I said, "Because somebody said the wrong thing to me, they're going to meet Nakia and not Mr. Douglas." I said, "So just let me pack up." I said, "Because this is painful." I said, "You got to think, I've been with these kids for 6 years.
Yeah.
And so now you wiping this away from me. I don't know, what this is." And after she left, I sat down and prayed.
Mm.
And Miss Shirley Newsom, great mentor that I hadn't said her name enough, she gave me my first principalship at Manor Jackson. And so she called me, they still used to call me baby brother. She said, "Baby brother, you know where you're going?" I said, "No, ma'am." She said, "You sure?" I said, "No, ma'am." She said, "You need to come see me." She said, "You sure you don't know where you're going?" I said, "Miss Newsom," I said, "Honestly," I said, "I'll probably either be going to Chicago or Baltimore." I said, "I'm a finalist for a position in Chicago, and Baltimore's reaching out to me." She said, No, that's not the plan." I was like, "I don't know what plan you talking about. I can tell you about this plan."
Mm-hmm.
I get over there and she said, "You sure you don't know where you're going?" I said, "No, ma'am." And I'd heard them talk about an all-male school a couple years prior to, and I'm like, okay, that's cool. I'm not on that track. I'm in high school. Next thing after this, superintendency, and, I'm doing the plan.
Right. Your plan.
My plan and everybody else's plan for me.
Yeah.
For someone that didn't really want to be an educator anyway.
Yeah.
Never, in fact.
Exactly. And literally I get there and she said, "You sure nobody talking?" I said, "No, ma'am." She said, "You need to read this." And she turns around and she says, "This has been the plan for you all along." She slides me a piece of paper and it says, "Nakia Douglas is a principal of the All Male Leadership Academy," which later became known as Barack Obama Male Leadership Academy. And I'm sitting there and I'm looking at it and I'm like, why didn't nobody tell me?
Right.
And she was like, "Well, we just thought you would apply and that you knew this was the plan we had for you." And I was like, "No, that was not my plan." I said, "My plan was, I was working on my doctorate. I was working on my doctorate at UT. So in the midst of all that, I was also working on my doctorate."
Mm-hmm.
But when life hits, you have decisions you have to make.
Sure.
You can be selfish or you can be present.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I chose to be present. I wouldn't let my wife go through no more healing. And so I set out to say, for 6 years, 7 years, 7 years, I did all transition, open up Barack Obama, still going through, my season of healing and growth. But every baby shower, anything with kids, I did. My wife didn't go to anything. We sit at the house, TV be on. So I'm about to give birth. I need to see what's on ESPN.
Yeah.
I need to see what's on ESPN.
Yeah.
August of 2015, we're sitting at the house. I don't know what we were watching. I click it. Why do you always do that? Why do I always do what? Why you always put it on ESPN? We've been married long enough. I know the first episode comes on at 6 o'clock. They run it all day long. They don't put a new one on till 6 o'clock in the evening. And they do run a little ticker tape at the bottom to give you some updates. Why do you keep doing that? I said, well, that's my only way of protecting you. She like, what? From what? I said, from seeing kids being born and things of that nature. And we shed tears together.
Mm-hmm.
And prior to that, when she was in the hospital or we were going through it, I would only cry in the hallway, in the car, or at home. Never did it in front of her. Because one time when she first went to the hospital, I got there after work. I walked into the hospital room. My wife was crying. My mom was crying. My mother-in-law was crying. And my father-in-law was crying, who I'd never seen cry. And again, the man of the house, I'm a protector.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to find out what happened, who did it, and they were not to come into that office. I mean, to the her hospital room again. It was the doctor. Just had bad side manners, and was just very matter of fact. You're gonna lose the kids. This is gonna happen, and we were, operating in faith. Like, no, you ain't killing our faith, and you got my wife crying, my mama. My mother-in-law and my father-in-law, oh no, don't you come back in here. Lead nurse, if she needs to talk to anybody, she talks to me. She forecasted the truth, but it was a hard pill to take.
Yeah.
So I just went in protective mode for those 7 years. And after we cried, my wife was like, I thought I was going through this by myself. So what do you mean?
Ooh.
She said, I thought I was dealing with this pain myself. I didn't know you felt this way. I said, oh, babe, I cried when I wasn't around you. I said, but I just felt like I always had to be strong for you. And in that moment of vulnerability, she says, I'm ready. I said, you ready for what? She says, adoption, foster. And we had tried it down in Austin, but didn't complete it. And she says, I'm ready. Well, when she said that, I was like, well, I may know somebody. She said, you always know somebody. I said, well, I kind of met somebody. And had met a pastor in Fort Worth speaking at an event with the young men. And he had a ministry. His church had a ministry of foster to adoption.
Mm-hmm.
And met Pastor, I knew him as Pastor. And we get down there. I call him. He says, Pastor Blake. He says, can I help you? I said, Pastor Blake is Nakia Douglas. We met down in Fort Worth. He said, yeah, I remember with the boys' school. I said, yes, sir. I said, my wife and I are interested in considering your adoption ministry. Can we meet? He said, well, yeah, meet me out in Arlington with our friends. So we get out there as Arrow Agency. And Arrow is an agency that helps with foster to adoption processes. So we get there and he just tells me to meet him there. So we get there and they say, how can we help? I said, well, we're here to meet Pastor Blake. I said, Pastor Blake? I said, well, I don't know Pastor Blake. I said, well, he gave us y'all's card and told us to meet y'all here. And they were like, okay. And when he walks in, they were like, you talking about him? I said, yeah, that's Pastor Blake. They said, no, that's not Pastor Blake. That's Bishop Blake. I said, well, okay, I didn't know him as Pastor Blake. He told me, man.
Level up.
Yeah. Ding.
Said, we've never seen this happen before. We started classes that September. Larry and Zamaya moved in, came to our forever family that December. We finalized their adoption that May. And so Zaire and Zamaya represent 7, the number of completion, the completion of our grieving.
Yeah.
Wow.
Uh-huh.
And so when was that? Like
that was
timeline?
2016.
Gotcha.
Uh-huh.
That's awesome, man.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So, yeah, my life was a series of blessings and faith and everything in between.
What was it they said they called you when you were a kid? Smiley?
Smiley. Yes, sir.
Look at the guy, he's smiling right now. Like just, I can see it like kind of washing over, like seeing it. Yeah.
Yes,
you're
sir.
smiling right now.
Yes, sir.
There's like maybe 165 of these or whatever. There's only been 2 times where I I know the name of the episode because it just keeps showing up. Divine appointments.
Yes, sir.
Right.
It's all over the place.
Yes, sir.
Holy cow.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
There's been like 20 stories where it's all rooted in a divine appointment.
Right.
And I guess a lot of life is that.
Right.
But yours are like uppercut apparent right there, you know?
And how many people really have them but just don't acknowledge them?
Exactly. Yeah.
Right.
This is jumping out, but they're all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
They're probably right in front of my face and I can't see them and I'm talking about them.
And going back to what you said at the beginning, just, some seed that was dropped. That seed is an impetus to this oak tree that was built and all that it bears from there.
100%.
I like the silence sometimes. I like to take it in a little bit better,
Oh, I can't wait to listen back to this one. I usually take like a ton of notes, and I started in the beginning taking a lot of notes, then I just stopped.
Yes.
It's just conversation time.
Oh, I appreciate this. This is God has been good. And so just even going back, to the story, Maynard Jackson Middle, Barack Obama. No, I'm sorry, Maynard Jackson Middle, A. Maceo Smith, Barack Obama. After I left, Barack Obama became the executive director of the feeder pattern. So I actually got to oversee all the schools in the community.
Mm-hmm.
And then I transitioned to UNT Dallas as executive director of the TRIO and pre-collegiate programs. The special part about that was I'm a product of TRIO programs because I was first gen. And so for 19 years, they got to see me grow as a professional. And it was all in the same zip code, 75216, 75241. And so when I got ready to leave to go from the school district to the university, my principals gave me a shirt that says, "He's not leaving, he's only going to college." Because they used to call me baby brother. And so they literally saw me go from an elementary to a middle to a high school principal to a middle school, magnet principal to the ED to the university. And so my work now with the Transition Resource Action Center is called TRAC. I've been there 3.5 months. Yeah, 3.5 months. We support young people ages 14 to 24 that are aging out of the foster care system, dealing with homelessness, and or have had contact with the juvenile justice centers. We do so for 19 counties. We have 2 drop-in centers, one in Dallas, one in Fort Worth, where young people and or the partner agencies that are supporting them can come and get resources. And we're the connector in regards to helping them find housing, supporting them in their workforce development, and ultimately getting jobs and or continuing their education. And for those that are 14 to 17 and a half that are still in care, we provide what we call life skills courses to prepare them for that transition. So cumulatively, my years as a kindergarten, elementary, high school, magnet school principal prepare me for this moment because these are the kids that fell through the cracks.
Right.
These are the kids that the system failed. And so now we have an expedited, intentional, purposeful, brief moment of time in helping them find themselves and ultimately become their best selves for the future.
There's a population right there that I never even really contemplated existed, the one that you're serving.
Yes, sir.
Because I think I probably have some preconceived notions about what the foster system does for kids.
Yes, sir.
And have never really contemplated that maybe it doesn't actually do all the things
Yes,
for
sir.
those kids that I thought
Yes, sir.
it was doing. Right?
Yeah.
They need something more.
When you think about the foster care system, you look at it from 2 ways. There's a beginning and there's an end.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the ending or part of the journey is ultimately, the ultimate goal is adoption. So therefore, you still have that caring family or someone to assume responsibility. But if you've been passed on from state agency, from housing, living arrangements to family, something's going to be missed.
Right.
And so we help try to connect the dots for those missing parts. And so some of the greatest outcomes have come through just our case managers and the coaching they're able to do with some of those young people that building faith and belief in themselves that you are worthy.
That's
Oh,
right.
man.
You are seen. You are heard.
Because rejection's all you know.
Exactly. That's all you know.
Yeah.
And so you've learned how to manipulate the system because the system has manipulated you. And so, therefore, when, some people say, well, they're so hard to work with, I was like, well, think
Wouldn't you
about
be?
it. Would you not be the same way if you've been systematically placed within a cycle that really doesn't have a light at the end?
Mhm.
And then when you get to 17 and a half, and literally I witnessed this, and it blew me away the first time I saw it happen. One Friday, I was there. That was like my third week on the job. And a young lady's coming in, and, people coming in bringing bags. And she has balloons. So I'm like, are we having a birthday party or something? And they're like, oh, you haven't seen this, Mr. Douglas. I said, seen what? She's aging out. And she already has her case manager here. Her CPS case manager was dropping her off and everything. And we were getting her set up in transitional housing. But literally the night before, they did a little birthday party for her. And she had all her belongings with her. And so literally was from that moment to our case manager to before she could move into transitional housing, she had an arrangement with her family where they were going to let her stay over the weekend. And then she moved into her transitional housing that Monday.
How big is this? How big in Dallas is this? Like,
how big is
number
this
of
problem?
people? Yes.
So we serve currently over 1,300 youth between 19 counties. But we're just one agency. And so when you think about collectively across, North Texas, they're probably anywhere between 15, 20,000 youth that we're talking about. And that's not even talking about the entire state.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's a campus.
Right.
It's a university.
Right. And then you think about across the nation. And so these are young people that are missed. And then, there's the conversation of opportunity youth, that they would fall into this realm as well because, there's the missed opportunities that we didn't provide them, collectively as a society. And this is that pivot point. This is that point where we recognize since the pandemic, we've lost a lot of our elders and seniors that have gone into retirement just to try to enjoy some portions of their lives.
Mm-hmm.
So now we have that workforce gap.
Oh, yeah.
And so when you talk about that workforce gap, that's putting stress and pressures on the K-12 continuum and also the higher ed continuum. How are we going to accelerate this process? And so now you have not only a focus on career and degree attainment, but also certificate attainment because we need these jobs filled like yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
And so those young people that we serve there are part of filling that gap as well. So it's not only that we're trying to stabilize them, get them in the housing, and get them into the workforce. No, we want you to go ahead and continue your career, get these certificates, and eventually get a degree. So you are going from a job to a career,
right,
to your passion.
Yeah.
And when you're there, you get a whole new space. And then we talk about changing generational curses. That's how you break them.
That's right. You got to start, right? One step.
Correct.
Might not be the ideal opportunity.
Correct.
But it's something.
Correct.
Something.
Correct.
So you could dig some character into and just figure out what the next step is.
Right.
Might not be ideal up front.
Yes, sir.
Start.
Yes, sir. You got to start somewhere.
Yeah.
What's the ask for listeners? Like, is there, I don't know. I don't even know what the right question. Place to plug in, somebody to call, website to visit. How do we, if I'm out there and I just heard this story and the passion that you have about all of this and the kill, and I think, how do I find out more? How do we get into this?
Number one, just get involved. I'd love for everyone to get involved with us. We're at trackonline.org,
okay.
www.traconline.org. We are a 20-year-old organization that is in the midst of its independence campaign from City Square. And so we're the last organization that'll be spinning out from City Square. It's been a great partnership. But now we're standing on our own 2 feet with our own 501c3 and about to take our work to the next level. I tell any parent or family member, first and foremost, to be involved in the lives of your own family. Make sure that you're your child's first teacher. They don't value education if you don't value education. Take care of ourselves. A lot of us in this industry and other industries tend to overexert and spend so much of our time taking care of others. Sometimes we lose ourselves. As we were talking earlier, I'm in a process with my wife and I. We're just focusing on our health so we can be here for the long haul for those two little ones.
Yeah.
That we have a lot more years to raise. And be intentional. Be intentional about, causes that you believe in. Be intentional about the memories you're creating with you and your family. Be intentional about who you are as an individual, because collectively, we're so much better, but it has to start internally before it can become external. With the students, I used to always tell them, the first person you have to believe in is yourself. First person you love is yourself. First person you lead is yourself. You can't believe, lead, or love anyone else till you first do it for yourself. And so I just present that to your listeners as well. It starts internally for it to be external.
Mm-hmm.
And just be open. But yeah, if you want to get involved, www.trackonline.org. We need assistance. Just the bare necessities that people take for granted. One of those first eye-awakening moments for me on the tour was going into the storage closet, and you see, the toiletries, and you see socks, and you see underwear. And then I looked up on the wall and I see something that says tents, and I'm like, tents. Then I look on the other wall and see sleeping bags, and they were like, you got to remember, Mr. Douglas, all of our youth don't like going to shelters. And so some of them are okay with sleeping out at night. That's a real moment.
Yeah.
That's a real moment.
Yeah.
So however people would like to provide support, and we prefer gently used, but preferably new items, because a lot of these young people are used to getting used things. And so we like them to have new items. When I say toiletries, I mean everything down to fingernail clippers, to chapstick, to deodorant. However you want to get involved, please reach out to us, and we'd be willing to connect you to our organizations or others that are doing some phenomenal work throughout the community.
End.
Man.
I said in, but yes.
Well, end also.
In,
like
in,
that is.
Yeah, you looped one big thing into it.
How do you do anything after that, man? That's excellent. Yeah, the construction community is primarily where our listeners hang out, which is full circle the par scale. And my hope is that folks are like, this is amazing, and how do we get involved? So
also with the construction community, don't think you all are excluded now.
Oh
no.
So we like getting involved.
So we have opportunities now that we're considering creating and building our own transitional housing.
Mm-hmm.
So we have a project that we're looking at in Fort Worth, and we're considering some opportunities here in Dallas as well. So for those that is your gift, we have a way we can have a conversation in regards to these new opportunities, because we want to be able to house more. Currently with some of our housing, we partner with local apartments, and actually recently had a recent conversation with a couple of hotel chains that are wanting to partner with us to provide opportunities for our youth. Quite naturally, we're always going to go out and survey and make sure it's a safe existence for our young people should we need emergency housing, but eventually we want to have our own. So definitely interested in that relationship and these conversations.
We know a few people.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, for sure. Well, this was awesome, man. This is one of those days where we just get talking. I have no idea how long it's been, but it's been amazing. And to Kev's point earlier, sometimes I picked it all up on the way, and I'm like, I'll listen to it again when we edit it, but I don't need to, because I can't wait till Monday.
Yeah, for sure.
I can't wait till Monday to listen again. So just, dude, thanks for hanging out with us.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
So good, man.
Thank you all for this platform. You all are doing some special work. Y'all doing some called work. And so just keep doing it.